So welcome back everyone to another episode of Spiritual Shadowboxing. Today we're talking about consciously honoring the anniversary of 9/11, and we are so thrilled to have Mikki Baloy with us today. She is a shamanic healer. She was actually the director of the 9/11 Foundation in New York City, helping to create and maintain programs to assist many thousands of people while undertaking her own healing journey, which she's going to share a little bit about with us today. And she's also the author of Hallowed Underground, Sacred Hope and Healing in Dark Times, which is available on Amazon, and I will put the link in the show notes. So Mikki, thank you for being here today. We're all so appreciative.
I'm really thrilled to be here. I was touched by the invitation, and it's sweet to see all of you this morning in particular.
Yeah. So what does this morning mean for you?
You know, I was thinking about that when I got out of bed today, because in a lot of ways 9/11 was the worst day of my life. I was 24 and sort of new to New York City and kind of broke and naive, and then the world came crashing down. And it was also in a way a sort of initiatory experience in the beginning of a very long journey that continues even now, and from which I'm still learning so much. And it's such a private thing. Like, those are, you know, the worst day of anybody's life is such an intimate sort of private thing.
Right.
But it's also like publicly recognized and memorialized and talked about, and there are books and films, and you know, and I it's an eerie thing. I don't really know how to wrap my head around that paradox, that this thing that was so private for me is everywhere, especially today. Yeah. So it's I never really know what to do with this day, to be honest. I never know. Do I want it to be a day of like prayer and contemplation? Do I need to be around people? Do I need to be on my own? Do I need to escape and just be indulgent? You know, I never really know until it happens.
And do you think that, or do you find that changes from year to year as time has passed?
Yeah, absolutely. You know, I've had years where I dedicate it to self-care, and I go get a massage and an ice cream sundae, and I call my best friend, and you know, and it's that kind of day. And then I have days where I feel very really charged and really motivated to be a change maker, you know, and dive in and be political and move the needle, you know. So it really it runs the spectrum. Yeah.
How are you feeling today?
Mindful. I think I feel calmer than I have felt in years past. And yeah, I feel the need to kind of gently check in on the people I know who kind of share my feelings about the day. And I think better able to sort of navigate, you know, if I need to go sit and cry, I can do that. If I need to go for a walk, I can do that. And just kind of checking in with myself and other people, mindfully, gently.
You hit on an important point that I wonder if it's part of the collective dialogue, which is really intentionally creating some self-care, anticipating, right? Like as grief goes, as trauma goes, really being onto yourself to know that there may be needs that day and that they may shift throughout the day.
Yeah, you know, and I wonder about other people's grief experience, you know, the anniversary of the death of a loved one, the anniversary of the car accident, the anniversary of, you know, the house burning down, whatever it was that really changed your life. When that day comes, I think to have at least the ritual of giving yourself space.
Right. It could be almost like the ritual of rebirth, like the card we pulled earlier, you know, like a rebirth on that anniversary, and maybe a rededication to certain intentions that are personal to you. And then, you know, as you say, also, I think as we have our own self-care and our own self-love, that leads to the collective to do the same. and an allowance for ourselves, and an allowance as Fereshta says about, you know, the collective. I think it's important, that relationship. Do you agree? How do you feel about that? I mean, do you feel that it could be almost a symbolic rebirth in the anniversary?
I mean, it depends on the person, you know, it depends on where they're at. You know, if you're still really deep in the grief, then you know, my hope is that you have what you need to be there.
Right.
You know, that kind of has to come before the rebirth process. And in terms of the collective, we collectively are not good at grief.
Right.
We don't really know how to do it.
That's true, yeah.
You know?
It's very true, very true.
Yeah. So, I mean, I hope, you know, maybe in some way that this was, that this is an opportunity for us to learn to do it better, because we all feel it. You know, we all have a story about where we were.
Exactly, yeah, for sure, yeah.
So maybe we can offer each other a little gentleness in that way, and give each other space to have whatever feelings are there.
Well, I think you know, the good point of like checking in with people. There's this awkward energy around, there's care, and then there's, right? I imagine for us, this society's ability to do grief, like, do I check in? Do I just kind of let it go? And I'm hearing you say, like, this is part of what helps you get through, is checking in on your community.
Yeah, and I mean, I woke up to text messages from former colleagues. You know, people that you mentioned briefly the foundation. So a few years after 9/11, I was unemployed and I really needed a job. And the job that I found, or that found me, was with a 9/11 recovery foundation that was rooted in the Lutheran Church. Not Lutheran, they didn't care. And the work that was done over the course of my tenure there, my 5 years there, included stocking food pantries, seeing to the unmet needs of people who were already working with social workers, advocating for healthcare for recovery workers and people who were affected, immigration assistance, because I don't know if you remember special registration, that put a lot of Muslim families in a very, very difficult situation. And a lot of the recovery workers and people who were contracted to clean all of those offices downtown were undocumented immigrants. So they had no social safety net when they got sick. So there's this huge domestic violence awareness programming, because domestic violence goes up after a disaster. So there was this incredibly comprehensive bundle of programs that I was really privileged to be a part of and support and learn about. And so it was a sort of crucible and a lot of very tight relationships were formed there, you know, kind of on the ground in this very literal way, trying to help and trying to solve problems where we could. And so, you know, those are the people today that I think of most, and we check in on each other and send the text message and post, you know. I got an email from a gentleman who was the executive director of our national organization. Every year on 9/11, first thing in the morning, I get that email from him. So to me, that is, you know, at least a silver lining maybe, or one of the beauties that came from this is those alliances and connections. Yeah. And to check in on each other really is very comforting, and it's affirming. The work we did.
I'm wondering about that position. You said that it sort of found you, and I believe that it probably did. I'm wondering, over the course of those 5 years, how that may have impacted your processing of the grief of that day, you know, because it seems like you took that position fairly soon after the event, right? Was it like within a year or so?
It was about a year and a half.
A year and a half, yeah.
So after a lot of the news cycles had ended, that's when I started.
Right.
Well, that's when it needed to be happening too.
Right.
When the attention from the media goes away, the issue is still there.
There's so much to do. Yeah.
I know. More, probably, yeah.
You know, it's interesting. It's such a complex question about how it helped or how it affected my process, because I knew nothing about trauma. I knew nothing about trauma going into that job, and so I didn't understand about my own PTSD, and I didn't understand trauma stewardship. I didn't understand vicarious trauma. And so there were a few points where I kind of burned out, and I needed to take a huge step back and sort of recalibrate and get some support. But in that way, it was an education. You know, those are life lessons that I will take with me forever now.
Right.
And on the other hand, you know, I saw that my experience was simultaneously very personal and valid and unique to me, and also universal, you know, communal, very shared experience. And to be able to hold both of those things at the same time sometimes is confusing, but is also, again, really comforting. And for me has really deepened my empathy and my understanding of resilience, because it's not just mine, it's for all of us. You know, resilience on this massive scale.
Wow.
And I'm
It's like a lot, so let's just all like
It's a lot.
But talk about like really trying to move that energy through our body right now, and just
Yeah.
you know, just the sharing that you gave and we experienced from. I mean, I think it brings us all, you know, to that day. You know, we all have our stories, like you said, and I think I shared with you before. On that day, as a photographer, I took the last subway down to the towers, and I was there when they both fell. You know, taking photos and documenting what I saw. And, you know, it's so funny. Sometimes I think as a photographer, when I have my photographer hat on, like I wonder when I see trauma, like I saw some horrific things when I was down there. And, you know, speaking to you right now, I'm like, how did I ever really kind of deal with that? You know, and I don't know is the answer, you know, because, you know, as a photographer, sometimes you kind of, you know, you become that witness and that observer, and you're just capturing through your lens. But somehow, I was there, and, you know, I horrifically saw, you know, people coming out of the towers, people jumping out of the towers. And, you know, I don't think I dealt with my trauma with it, actually, now that I'm speaking to you about it, you know. So I think, you know, I think it's important to share our stories, right?
Yeah. Yeah, and I'm wondering, Mikki, you know, I don't think Kelly's probably alone in this sort of every year noticing that maybe it hasn't been dealt with. So what are some ways, I suppose, that someone coming to this sort of conclusion like Kelly can work through it alone or with guidance?
Well, I don't know that we need to do it alone. I don't know that it's best to do it alone. You know, there are people who are very, very well trained to sort of hold that space for us and give us tools and resources to navigate it. So I'm always a proponent, you know, in my healing practice too. I'm glad people come to me, but I'm going to refer you to everybody I know. Because it's important to use every resource that's available to you if you feel, I mean, why not? If there's support for you, use it. You know?
Exactly.
So, I mean, things that have helped me, and there are many, many methods. Things that helped me through PTSD that I didn't know I had were EMDR and brain spotting psychotherapy.
Brain spotting.
Brain spotting is an offshoot of EMDR. Yeah, David Grand pioneered that. Shamanic work for sure. There's a reason I do what I do. And homeopathy actually was very helpful. It doesn't resolve your trauma, but it can help you deal with the acuteness of the symptoms that you might experience as a result of it.
That's so interesting.
Yeah, for me it was depression and anxiety.
Yeah, I was going to ask, like, what are kind of common symptoms, just for people listening to this, that might, they might not know what they're experiencing.
Mm-hmm. So in the early days of it, for me, panic attacks,
Mm-hmm.
not frequently, but sometimes even just mild, like a little tightness in the chest.
Mm-hmm.
Depression, which again, I didn't really know how to name at the time. But for me, there was just sort of a pall cast over everything.
Malaise.
I don't remember belly laughing for a couple of years. Nothing really held any joy for me for a while. I had nightmares that were sort of vaguely about buildings and fires and airplanes or UFOs or things like that. Mm. And what also happened for me was that past traumas came up. I remembered things that had troubled me in the past that were unresolved.
Right.
Yeah. So those are things for me, but other people have they have hypervigilance. Startle response is sort of heightened. Anger management stuff, flares of temper can come up. Rumination, like sort of morbid daydreams, or sort of going back in time and going over it and over it and over it again, which is our mind's attempt to resolve it.
Hoping for a different outcome.
Yep.
Yeah.
Survivor guilt too, like what should I have done? Why am I here? Mm-hmm. Those things. So those are all very much trauma related. And the good news is we don't have to stay in that space, right? There's lots of ways to heal that and navigate out. Mm. It's heavy stuff, y'all. Like, thanks for going here with me.
Yeah, we're just breathing it in. I think it's I'm feeling the collective. Obviously, as you said, we all have our story of where we were when it happened. But my sense of today, and it's only this year that I feel this way, is just holding space, just being a holder of the energy. I think of a quote of like, a burden carried is a burden divided, right? Like just holding space for what I imagine is multitudes of different emotions happening for people. And also, as someone who's all about the feels and coaches people to be with their emotions and ride those waves, I feel a strange sense of hope in a day like this. That people gift themselves permission to just feel the suck and just not busy themselves over it, hopefully. There are days of grief that offer that, where you don't have to shrug it off and be strong.
Power through.
Yeah. And I also wonder, because of, the COVID and what we have gone with the pandemic and the isolation and starting slowly to come out of that kind of cocoon of, removing a lot of distractions from most of our lives, especially at the first 3 months or so, where, so this year, 9/11, the collective mindset is, I think, less distracted in some ways. I think, and because of that, I think when somebody their thoughts go to their day, I think their emotions can be clearer, and their intention of being have gratitude and being thankful for, living through that and living through COVID and understanding how precious life is. I think COVID can really kind of allow even a deeper healing in a collective situation. I don't know if you agree. Sorry, Kelly.
Yeah, I think that's a good point. I mean, I feel like this whole recent time that we've been living in is very much like a cocoon, right? It's okay.
Sorry, I shut my...
It's okay. Yeah, so very much a cocoon, right? And so we have had only time to pause and reflect, right? And so it's been COVID, it's been, all of the racial strife. Now it's 9/11. I don't think that those things are going to cease, right? There are only going to be more and more things that we have to deal with. And this time gives us that pause that we keep talking about, you know? So, yeah, it's interesting how people may think of or process the grief associated with the anniversary of today differently this year than they have in the past.
Yeah, and I'm reminded right now of something a teacher said recently in a course that I've been taking throughout this whole time, that you don't need a reason to be broken open.
Mm.
You know, you don't have to have a whole narrative worked out about why you're shedding this tear. You know, and so if there's a breaking open that happens today or tomorrow or a month from now, it is all of it. It is all of it that we're all going through.
Yeah.
Who saw any of this coming?
Yeah.
Who had the skill to navigate this before it happened?
Right. Not one of us.
No, so we're all in the soup, and if it breaks you open, then that means you're alive.
Yeah.
You know, it means you're paying attention.
Yeah.
Exactly.
I love this concept too, and in the sense that I do feel in this society we are somehow asked, it's unspoken, but there's an unspoken expectation that there needs to be a narrative for that tear.
Yeah.
Right? That we need to explain the tear. We need to have it validated before we can just have it. And I'm hearing a very unique approach from your teacher that you think you're crying about one thing, but you might be crying about 17 things. And what if we don't have to explain ourselves? It's like,
Right.
that's just
What if it
beautiful.
doesn't matter?
It doesn't matter.
Right.
And it is about riding that emotion that you said earlier, just riding that emotion, you know, and it's good and it's okay. And it's good to cry, you know, it's good to express all emotions.
Yeah.
Rather than hold them in the body, right? We sort of touched on that earlier too. When we hold all of that in the body, it gets stuck in the joints and the organs, and it changes our perceptions of life, really. So it's meant to move. It's meant to move. Yeah, we need to feel safe enough to allow that to happen. That awkward moment of like, how are you? You know, do I want to know? Do you want to tell me? You know, so we need to establish that safety too, that it is really okay to go there.
Yeah. I want to share a story. That's actually a great segue. My brother last week was driving somewhere in Long Island, and he saw this man, probably about the same age as my father. And this man was walking. He seemed a little wobbly. My brother wasn't sure if he had been drinking or whatever it was, but it was the middle of the day. He ended up pulling over and just kind of watching him. There was something he felt very much on, like on a soul level, like something's not right with this guy. I think maybe because he reminded my brother of my dad, he had this feeling of like, I just need to pull over and like make sure that this guy's okay. The guy ended up walking toward the car just like on his route, and my brother realized that it looked like he really had been drinking. So he was concerned that he was going to be walking across this, 2 or 3 lane of traffic. And so he called to the guy, had him come over and sit down on the curb, and offered him some water. And the guy was very resistant. He didn't feel safe at first. And, through a conversation over a number of hours, this guy opened up that he was a first responder in 9/11. And the anniversary of it was coming up, and he went to the bar or was drinking at home or whatever the case may be. And he left his house that day with the intention of walking across that highway and killing himself. And my brother just felt this so strongly that he essentially saved this guy's life and ended up driving him home after having this conversation, drove him home. And the guy was sort of so taken aback that someone cared about him, and would sit there and listen. And my brother said, here's my phone number. If you ever need a ride, whether I'm in the area or not, you can always call me. And the guy was like, you would do that for me? You don't even know who I am. My brother was like, yeah, of course I'll do that for you. And it was just, my brother called my father after that And then he called my cousin, and he ended up, breaking down and crying on the phone with my cousin. And then he told me about it. And I was really proud of him in that moment, because I think that that's who he truly is. But it also brought up this idea for me that, like, 19 years later, we still have people who have so much trauma associated with this. And maybe it was survivor's guilt, maybe it was, whatever the case may be. We don't have to name that part of it, right? But yeah, it was just for me a story of making sure that we're all supporting one another, and we do reach out and we make sure that all of us are okay.
Thank you. That's an amazing story, Kel. Amazing story.
Yeah, I was proud of him.
Like a little soul group there, sometimes I do believe that, the whole soul group of, even if that one soul agreement was for your brother to be there at that exact time, to have that exchange, I mean, and because what is the importance of what happened between them, but the importance of you sharing that story and how that resonates and can vibrate through my experiencing it, through you verbally telling the story. And it's just amazing how stories like that can just uplift the collective, So, yeah.
Blessings to your brother for that, for sure. And, it's true, 19 years out, there is still a lot. And there have been a lot of people who died, which means that recovery workers and first responders have colleagues who are no longer here in those 19 years. And yeah, there's a lot that could have been going on for that gentleman that day. But it's true too that we can demonstrate our kindness, we can demonstrate our care for each other. Because I think it's very easy in our meme bubbles to just post it and be like, oh, I care about everybody, and yeah, oh, this is this is a day to remember. Now I'm gonna go binge some Netflix, or whatever it is. Like,
right.
So to actually demonstrate care for each other and actively be kind, not just as a personal quality, but as something we do.
Yeah.
I think that's everything. That's everything. That's not spiritual.
No.
Right. That's human.
Right.
Yeah. And going back to what you just said, sort of like living in that meme bubble world, I think social media is a really important part of this discussion, because a lot of people will post images and will post the never forget. And, the conversation here is like, how can we consciously honor this anniversary, right? Like, what do we want to remember? What is it that we don't want to forget? Like, being more conscious of the imagery, the language, all of that. I know that you have some thoughts on that from what we talked about last time. So I would love to get into that.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of people will post the burning towers pictures or the collapse pictures, the videos, and it's really jarring for those of us who actually lived through that and were there to have those particular images. And when I've said to folks, even family members, like, hey, maybe, could you not post that picture? Like, is there something else that you could post that would be a little gentler on the nervous system?
Mm-hmm.
The response is often, well, we need to remember.
Yeah.
As if that's the only choice. That's the only way to do it.
Right.
But when we remember World War II, we're not posting pictures of the battlefield.
Right.
When we remember that someone passed away, we don't post them from their hospital bed. So there have to be other ways that we can do this. And I'm encouraged that this year in my feed so far today, I've seen some more thoughtful posts, probably in part because I've been a little bit vocal about it, but other ways that we can mark the day are to support small businesses. It's really important now, in particular with COVID.
Right.
But so many small businesses were affected in Lower Manhattan after 9/11.
Oh yeah.
We can be politically active. We can sign petitions or make donations to campaigns that we support. You know, if we're going to support the American way and democracy and let this be Patriots Day, what does that mean? Right? We can extend that care. Just check in on a neighbor, check in on a friend. If you know first responders, like, say thank you. Just check in on them, let them know actively that we aren't forgetting. You know, let it be a personal connection and interaction instead of just a demonstration.
But it's their service that we're not forgetting. It's their valor that we're not forgetting. It's not the act that we're not forgetting.
Right. We're not trying to remember all the violence.
Right.
Exactly. Let's bring hope. Let's have images that, you know, have hope as the message.
And resilience and connection. You know, I mean, being in New York on that day, it was, or in the days that followed even, you know, we were talking to strangers, and you know, New Yorkers, we're doing what we're doing. We're walking in this direction. We have places to be. But we took a minute and we talked to each other, you know, and we lit candles at Union Square, and we checked in on our local firehouses, and, you know, like, we were social creatures then.
I do remember that.
Yeah, so I think there needs to be humanity in this. We need to remember that piece, and not those couple of moments of horror. That's the wrong thing to sear into our brains.
Right.
Yeah.
Such a good point.
Yeah.
What do each of you do with this day?
I don't know. I'm, you know, as an empath, it's like I wasn't here. I was in LA, and it's still, those images would be jarring to me. Like, it's still just seeing humanity at that level of suffering is difficult. So for me today has been, and I love your invitation to check in on others. I think for me, I kind of hold it quietly, hold the energies, and just hold space for the ethers of whatever people are going through. But I love the idea of, like, actively, as you saying, like, love and service as a physical act.
Yeah.
I would have to agree. I mean, I think that, you know, by showing those acts of service and love and kindness to others, this is such a wonderful way of honoring this day. And, you know, for me, I'm an empath too, so I feel quite a bit. I don't know, right now I just feel like I get very quiet on this day, you know. And but obviously with, you know, I think my meditation and having a meditation practice and being able to ground, especially on days like today, for me personally helps, you know, just kind of recalibrate and center myself and understand what my own emotions are and what other emotions I might be feeling from others, other collectives. And I think to have that discernment is really important, especially today.
Yeah, I would echo a little bit of both of those answers. I was actually in Europe, supposed to come home on September 11th, and I, for whatever reason, ended up getting my plane ticket changed to come home the day before. And then I woke up, and then the next day was 9/11. So I feel tremendous gratitude, because who knows, you know, what could have happened. But more than just outside of that personal experience, yeah, it's definitely a day for stillness and quiet and checking in, connection, all of those things. Yeah. It's heavy, right? Like, it's heavy. This is like the reason why most people don't want to talk about it, is because you do have to pause. You do have to remember that there's a buildup that happens in your body.
Exactly. No, you're right. I love how you just said pause, because it's exactly what I was thinking about. Like, you know, this, in this particular podcast that we're having, there's been a lot of these quiet pauses. And, sometimes, you feel awkward with them, but this time it's like those quiet pauses are so important.
Well, we're good with awkward, so it's fine.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, just another day. No,
Just
sorry.
another podcast.
Just another podcast, another awkwardness. No.
Yeah.
But also,
I'm keeping it a little light, so that's kind of nice, Yeah.
Go ahead, Fereshta.
it makes me wonder how often we rush past our feelings.
True.
And yeah, today I feel very much given permission for slowness, stillness, a less busy day. And yeah, on a day like this, it makes sense. Like, it's a big anniversary. But I'm just curious about the day to day for people, right? Like, can we take the awkward pause, breathe in, center, allow ourselves a bit of space and grace to feel what we're feeling? Yeah.
And what a wonderful thing, actually, to teach children to be able to be comfortable with that pause, right? You don't have to fill up the space with words or thoughts or even actions. Just, it's okay to pause and just breathe, We want to rush, And, with that pause, again, going back to riding the emotions, in that pause, your emotions can rise. And I think people, that's why they feel that awkwardness,
Well, maybe the task is to remove the sentiment that the pause is awkward, right? Maybe that should be the natural.
We love the pause.
Yeah. Because in that moment, in that stillness, in that pause, you're creating this white space that allows the words to land as opposed to kind of like fire past you.
Beautiful.
Right?
Beautiful. That's great, Kel.
Yeah.
I love that,
Yeah, they have to land. There's so much, they're very impactful, and maybe that also helps some of it sink into the body, which then helps us move it through easier. Do you know what I mean?
Yes.
Yeah.
I do.
Yeah. On that note, do you want to maybe lead us through some guided meditation?
I do, and I'm going to change completely up now because I'm inspired to do something different.
Oh, okay, good.
I want to work with the waterways of our body, with our tears, our water, and we're still going to connect to the earth, but not so much soil and roots, but more water. The element of water today. So, okay. Let me just take this off. So let's begin. You guys are seated in a natural position. Okay. Close your eyes. Begin now to take a deep, slow, mindful breath through your nose. Feeling it move through the left and the right nostril, flowing down into your throat, into the middle of your heart as it wraps itself around your heart 3 times as you hold that breath there within the center of your divine heart. And then exhale through your mouth, long, slow, and mindful. Again, a slow, deep breath through your nose, feeling that holy breath move down your throat and into your heart as you find the space between the inhale and the exhale as it moves deeper and deeper within the sacred altar of your divine heart and holds. And then exhale through your mouth. Now to begin to breathe on your own, finding the rhythm of your own breath. The inhale, the pause, and the exhale. Begin to observe the rise and the fall of your chest with each inhale and exhale. And now, with your mind's eye, begin to see 4 columns of light move up from the corner of the room that you sit in. Columns of fluid light moving as it begins to rise above your head 6 feet, creating a cornerstones of the temple of your sacred heart. And now begin to see over your head gold filaments of light move from each column as it begins to weave and braid, creating a golden dome over your head. And here now you begin to sit within the center of this temple that you have created. As you become the witness of your breath as you breathe in. Pause and hold. And exhale through your mouth. And as we sit within the temple of our sacred heart, we begin to bring our mind's eye, our awareness into the center of our chest, into the center of our hearts. Begin to feel your beating heart through your veins, through your blood, through your bones, and throughout the water of your physical form. As you go deeper and deeper into your heart, connecting to the very life force, the very spirit of your form. And with each breath you take, you become more fluid. You begin to merge with the very waters of your body. The fluidity, the holiness. And it begins to fill your body, filling the spaces between your organs, this holy water. Filling your bones, filling your blood, moving into the cells of your body and into your DNA. And you begin to feel this water that moves from the center of your heart begin to pour out of every pore of your body. As you begin to feel tears moving down from your eyes, feeling the water move from your hands, from your feet. You begin to feel the room that you sit in become full with this holy water. So there's now no longer any space between you and the walls of the room. You and the golden dome above your head. You and the floor that you sit upon. You become all that is all, fluid, whole. As you become a great river of divinity, you begin to feel yourself moving slowly down the central cord of your body, moving through your legs, this great river rushing through into your feet. As it begins to find the waterways of the earth, her veins, And you follow it deep now into the earth, to the soil. Until you find yourself into the center of her heart, of the mother's heart, the crystallized core, where all the water becomes rushed around her as it becomes a great lake. And you allow yourself to float now here within this golden lake, within the fluidity of the divine. And here within this sacred space, within the center of the mother, with her heart and yours merged, you allow yourself to feel the tears, feel the water move through you, and move into her heart, into her stream, into her rivers, as you become one with the earth. Allow yourself to float, letting go all that no longer serves. Feeling a great release. As you breathe in, pause, and exhale. As you breathe in, pause, and exhale. Again, there is no separation between you and the fluidity of this great divine river. There is no separation between you and the great mother. The veins of her earth become the veins of your body. The water of her earth becomes the water of your body. And you are cleansed, made anew. And now slowly you move out of this great river. Feeling the water upon your skin. As you slowly now move back up through your feet. Into your knees, the link chakra, into your thighs, moving up into the roots at the base of your spine. Moving through your lower belly, the sacral, into the hara, into the solar plex, having your whole body filled with this divine water. Moving into your heart once again, this great fluidity, this great river. And it begins to fill all the spaces of your heart with this crystallized water. Filling all the spaces as it moves now into your throat, activating your voice to speak the truth. As this great river moves into your eyes, flushing out all illusion. And it moves into the top of your head, the great crown, where 1,000 petaled flower begins to move and grow. And as the dewdrops from this water begins to shine out in all directions, reaching out into the very cosmos themselves, as you become the reflection of the divine, connected to the earth, connected to the cosmos, through this great river of divine water, love, and light. Let's take one long, deep breath together as we slowly breathe in, holding that pause, and then exhale. And when you're ready, move your hands, your fingers, your head, and open your eyes when you're ready.
Thanks, Kelly.
Thank you.
I'm feeling more settled in my nervous system, and also just realizing that we can co-regulate on a day like today, can help each other. Yeah. And Mikki, I wanted to leave space for you as we close to, if there's anything else you want to say about consciously honoring today, and then also your offerings as a shamanic healer, because I know they've been a great gift in my life.
Well, I think to consciously honor the day, there is many ways to do that as there are people. It's not a one size fits all thing. But hopefully, no matter how you choose to mark the day, that there's kindness in it, for yourself and others. Just blessings and care and love and respect to anybody who's kind of going through it right now, even in ways that they weren't aware of before. Maybe especially then. Hang in there, everybody. And my offerings, more of my personal 9/11 story and more about the foundation work that I did and the things I learned. That's all in my book. I feel like since I wrote it, I need to talk about it less. But if you'd like to know more, it's in there. And I do private healing sessions, one-on-one, virtual, right now, still sliding scale. So if that's helpful to people to access this, like, by all means. So that's all on my website, mikkibaloy.com. I have some talks coming up. I speak for Sunday services sometimes at the Unitarian Church near me, so anybody can access those sermons that are coming up. And I have a Shamanism 101 course that starts in a couple of weeks. So for people who are curious about this path but don't want to commit to a big training without knowing more, this might be a great sort of beginning conversation. But when I say beginning, I don't mean light. We're going to dive into some interesting things.
Cool.
So that's coming up soon too.
Great. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Thank you. Means a lot.
My pleasure.
Thank you so much.
Be well, everybody. Take care.